Hello, Justin Austin with the Voice of Young America. Today we're talking about the conversation in Washington. The conversation is nonsense. People aren't connecting due to the fact that they are on opposite sides. They're polarized by their parties. And that is something that will not change unless the people change. People have to force the leadership to actually start having conversations or letting them know they will be removed. Anytime a legislature is continuing and continuing to go on without actually being active, it calls for the people to remove those in power. And that's something that needs to be done. But how do we identify those who need to be removed? We look at the conversation. And we look at the voting bills too, because that's the type of conversation as well. But if you look at anyone who is not speaking about values, when I say values, I mean American values. I'm not talking about Republican values or Democrat values. I'm talking about values, the ones that were established in the Constitution. And even though the Constitution at certain times in history was not favorable to all people, if you look at the values of the country at any given time, it's always been moving towards universal laws. That means that all men are created equal. So therefore, if you look at the three-fifth clause that was in the Constitution, has been removed through the amendment and things of that nature, because the value system that we all hold true and dear, that's universal to all of us, will over time remove anything that is discriminatory based on values. And the values that are being espoused in Washington is we value dissension, we value division, we value disruption. And we have to get away from that. But how do we get away from that? We actually have to identify what are the principles that we're aiming towards. These principles are universal. They're not Democratic, they're not Republican. But the reason why there is such polarization is because of the fact that we're not looking at universal principles that our country was founded upon. We're looking at principles that man keeps creating based on where they want to move the touchdown dude. You ever heard the phrase that they keep moving the goalposts, and that's what keeps happening. They're moving the goalposts, and I'm not saying which side, but I'm going to say they, and allow you guys to decide who they may be. One of the things we have to identify first, as was stated moments ago, is what are those values. Those values are based on first principles. First principles are things that are derived from things that are already known or can be known through experience. Once you have first principles, then you can actually look at outcomes and try to see where they merge in the middle. One of the things Washington is tasked to do is to look at outcomes and try to derive a plan to reach the outcome based on first principles. Outcomes that are derived not from first principles aren't sustainable, i.e. the Social Security system. It was not derived from a first principle, it was derived from an outcome. And when you derive things from an outcome only, which is conventional but not practical in the long term, it cannot be sustained. We are creating policies that cannot be sustained because they're not based on first principles, they're based on outcomes. If you look at the conversation that's being had in Washington, I think one side is talking about first principles, and I think another side is talking about outcomes. Now, both are important. Both are needed to be fruitful. First principles relate to nature. Outcomes relate to conventionality. Neo-Machiavellian ethics states that politics is referred to, or some may say about politics, it should be based on conventionality. But if you remove nature, which are first principles, then you are creating unsustainable systems that will not last and in perpetuity will perish. Require all legislators to either focus on first principles and outcomes and things that can actually merge the two. What does I mean merge the two is how can you go from a first principle to an outcome? You actually have to come up with a plan. Legislation is all designed to make first principles and outcomes connect and reach each other. First, if we look at it, what the Democrats are saying or what the Republicans are saying are talking about certain outcomes, but they are not feasible if we cannot put them on a sustainable path, which, going back to the first principle statement, if we allow legislatures to stay in power while not being active in a fruitful manner, then we are actually welcoming doom upon ourselves. We need to look at who is saying what by their actions. When I say who is saying what are their actions in the sense of the Democrats shut down the government over DACA, and then you have Republicans who might be kind of preventing certain legislation from being passed due to the fact that they have a majority. Both of these things are unproductive. When we allow our electives to be paid to hold stalemates, then we are actually serving ourselves short. We have to identify those who are not being productive, remove them, and add some new blood. Anytime a career politician actually gets reelected, we actually hurt ourselves. No career politician right now in Washington, in Tallahassee, or any state legislature is a productive force. And the reason I say productive force is because Washington has got to a point to where they're used to the same tricks and the same things. They know how to pull tricks on one another. Fresh blood removes that, just like what cryptocurrency is doing to the fiat system. Fiat system is the old man, cryptocurrency is the young man. The young man is going to eventually overcome the old man. And right now, the old man is being resistant. And for certain reasons, his wisdom teaches him certain things. But at the same time, the new young blood will overcome the old blood because that's the way evolution works. And we have to have evolution in our political system, which means that Donald Trump is an evolution of what we needed as well. We needed to get career politicians out of Washington and replace them with businessmen. If you look at what Donald Trump has done with his cabinet or some of his posts that he actually put people in, that he actually did not use career politicians, he used businessmen. I like this to a certain degree, that businessmen, they're all designed to actually achieve things. Businessmen achieve things. Politicians, they talk about things. That's the difference. If we take a businessman's not only just acumen, but his work ethic, which is designed to achieve, and put that with the ethos of politicians, and we're able to merge the two, then we will have a very fruitful and vigorous America. But at this time, what we do have the power to do is unseat in 2018 anyone, Democrat or Republican, who is not actually being active. We need to look at America as a business because it is. And we need someone who is actually going to pull the trigger on being active. We need people who actually want to make deals. Just look at it like a merger. When you have two companies who actually want to merge, they will find ways to make their yin and yang work. Democrats and Republicans are two companies that have to merge at every legislative bill, almost, because of the fact that no one has a dominant majority, which means 60% of the votes. So as long as no one has 60% of the votes, they actually have to merge every time they pass a bill to actually get it done. And when that being said, if we allow these people to continue doing the same thing and not speak about American values and not base laws and legislation and policies based off American values, then we're shorting ourselves. We have no one to blame because we see what the game is. Career politicians in Washington, they play the same rigmarole, and then those who come up under the ranks of these career politicians, they do the same thing. We need fresh blood in Washington. What I call for is anyone, regardless of party, who is not active in making America better by actually trying to merge, going off first principles to connect with outcomes. Those people are the cancer that's killing our society. There's so much more that we can be doing. There's so much that we can actually achieve. And I know it takes time. I know that progress definitely happens over time. I know that consensus actually takes time and a lot of hard work. But what we are getting is none of those things. What we are getting is polarization. They're going to keep you on the North Pole, keep you on the South Pole. I believe young Americans want to be in the equator. We want to find a warm place where we can all meet and enjoy this beautiful thing called America. And we will be able to do so once we force the conversation to be about values and not about party. America is great. America will continue to be great as long as the individuals become collective and be focused on what the values are that we're seeking to achieve. Start with values. If you have a value system, then you can build things based off that value system. Partisanship is opposite and antithetical to values, and that's what we have to understand. I support principles of certain parties. I do. There's things in the Republican Party I am ecstatic over. There's certain things in the Democratic principles that I get excited over as well. What concerns me more than being a part of a party is being a part of America. And to be a part of America, that means that you are being a part of those American values that have always preceded in the path to greatness. Let us be led by the American value system and not partisanship. Let's change the conversation to values. I'm Justin Austin, the voice of Young America. Saturdays, 6 p.m. on AM 860 The Answer. Catch us online, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, iTunes, and Spreaker. Be blessed.